Good to see you all. Thanks for scrambling. Well, thanks for forgiving my confusion, forgetfulness, so that we'd already scheduled a Thursday meeting, and that would have worked, but tonight works too. So thanks for coming together. So we had some homework coming out of the previous meeting, and then we have some new additions with that material I sent around.
Mhm.
Um, if you want me to keep holding the microphone, I'll call the meeting to order. Would someone agree to take notes tonight?
Okay.
Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you, Sammy, for sending around your notes. Um, let's see, I have the agenda in front of me, but we're going to do notes. We're going to do minutes, public comment, budget, and presentation, right?
Yep.
Um, so do we have any discussion of the minutes from the previous meeting submitted by Sammy?
Nope.
Nope.
I move we
They look
approve.
good to me. Do I have a motion to approve the
So moved.
minutes?
Second.
Second, thank you, Sven. These are the January 9th minutes. And all in favor?
Aye.
Minutes, great. Thanks again, Sammy, for sending those around. Any opposed? All right, I think I owe the town clerk a set of minutes that I kept also. So,
I
look at
think
all
we're
these.
we're all up together on the minutes now. I've got
Okay,
everything
great.
to the town. The only
Maybe I
thing
did.
we're missing is the last two meetings. I forgot to record. So actually, I forgot to record the last meeting, and my computer died. I got a new computer, but I lost a recording in the process of that. So, we're good. Okay.
It happens.
Frequently,
In our agenda, we have public comment at the end. So, um, I think it's been typical to give folks an opportunity if folks don't want to sit through the whole meeting to raise any issues. So if there's no objection, I'd welcome any short public
Yeah.
comments at this point, or we'll have another opportunity at the end of our meeting.
I'm fine with taking it out of order and doing it now, just to be fair for public input.
Okay, I don't see anyone coming on the screen or unmuting of our public participants, so we'll hold to the end. All right, so the budget changes in the proposal. I sent around a document. We can share it here so if everyone can look at it. I'm trying to open it as we speak. If anyone has it up, feel free to share.
I'll do it. I guess I don't have it up. I'll deal with that in a sec. Where is it? You did it in numbers, right?
I had it in numbers. I sent it. I tried to convert to Excel also since.
Yeah, I was able to open the Excel, so
Oh, the Excel didn't work. I
I
apologize. Okay, we'll look at it
no,
here.
Excel worked for me. The other one doesn't work, but I
Okay,
was able
yeah.
to open the Excel and see it.
Sure.
The other one is for Apple users,
Oh, okay.
which is, the fancy people here.
I know. Yeah.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Shrink it down a bit so that you can see the whole thing. Actually, I can't get it shrunk down enough.
You don't make it too small,
Oh,
then
okay.
I
No.
started.
I just have to look at it.
Yes, thank you, Malcolm. So if you look at the tabs across the top, we have, we don't need to change the tab, Malcolm, but if we have, this was a format that Toby and Rachel and the coordinating team came up with to have kind of comparing apples to apples. So the different tabs should sort of have these similar buckets. Um, and across the top, we've got the recurring management tab, the dredging tab, the dam removal tab. That was what we had all discussed at our last task force meeting a couple weeks ago. This is a revised tab we're looking at here, dam removal revised, and that is what we'll talk about tonight. And then after we look at this tab, we'll jump to the summary revised. I didn't cut and paste, but the summary is sort of putting it all on one page. It summarizes the various costs into major categories, and then I've kind of ported these numbers over to this. So let's
Okay.
let's hear the dam removal revised,
Mhm.
and I'll walk through what I summarized in that email. And these changes come out of conversations with this small group for benefit of our public participants. Four members of the task force, our two co-chairs, Keith Hannon and myself, had been asked to meet on a more frequent basis just to sort of hammer out conversations that were coming up in the task force and bringing some of those conversations back here to this dam removal subgroup. So what we're looking at under this first header, rows um, rows 3 to 16 is the dam removal proposal that we've seen before from Sumco, this 1.1 million. So the number on row 16 is the dam removal subtotal that we received from Sumco several months ago. So that's been a consistent number. The next block between those gray lines, sort of everything down to row 22, are costs associated with establishing and stabilizing a stream channel where we want it to be. There's been conversation about whether the stream channel will establish sort of following the bathymetry in a way that where we have this report from EA Engineering suggesting that it would follow the line of bathymetry close to what we all hope to come in on the northwest corner of Scout Island through the deeper section of the pond that will remain open water, close to Commonwealth Ave, and then coming down to the outlet. We've all discussed as a group that we want it to come really close to Com Ave access point, so folks have a good put in there.
Yep.
And so in any eventuality, we all envision some sort of engineering, channel establishment and stabilization to have the channel where we want it to. There was conversation back and forth about how much of that channel needs to be engineered. The whole channel from inlet to outlet, tracing that EA Engineering projected line is over 3,000 feet. The southern
50.
What was that, Malcolm?
3,750
Oh,
according.
okay, thanks.
Yeah.
3,750. The southeastern section, sort of going from, there's a constriction from Scout Island to sort of the land behind the Commonwealth Ave houses down to the outlet seems pretty well defined. It seems like we don't have to do a lot of channel definition there because the whole system becomes quite a bit narrower. That's about 1,000 feet. Path through the deep hole itself is between 500 and 1,000 feet. In the area coming out of Neshoba Brook, it already has a channel over there. So we had talked about estimating about 1,000 feet of channel definition needed in the area of Com Ave and maybe over near Scout Island. In the small group, we discussed we don't really know. And we've talked about, Delia has said, that kind of level of detail would happen in the 100% design plan. We would ask the folks who are designing the dam removal to design a stream channel restoration as a component of that, and that would all happen in 100% design. And we're not going to pay for that work unless the town decides to proceed with the dam removal. So we all talked in a small group about let's bracket the costs for channel establishment, and let's bracket it at 1,000 to 2,000 feet. So if you look at rows 19 and 20, we had presented in this general section of our budgets before that 365,000 and 300,000 as costs for establishing 1,000 feet of channel. And those per foot costs came from Sumco proposals that Malcolm took a very close look at, I took a close look at, and we all sort of discussed using those as reference numbers. If we use 1,000 to 2,000, column C just doubles those numbers. So we go from 365,000 for wetland mats for construction access to 730,000. Channel establishment and stabilization, we go from 300,000 to 600,000. So that was just to say, here's a lower estimate and an upper estimate for this work. So that's the one change that we've seen. So we've added column C here as a sort of an upper range estimate. Then We had also asked Delia to get more info from EA on what would be required in terms of additional engineering, additional data collection, additional design work to get a channel where we want it to be. And these rows 17, 18, and 21 reflect the costs that EA estimated, and that was in the email that I sent you all.
Yeah.
So we've added row 17, 18 as a range, and 21 as a range. So that creates row 22 with this range of costs for stream channel establishment and stabilization. Any questions about any of that?
Nope.
Okay. Nothing has changed on rows 23, 24, 25, I don't think. But as a group, I mean, multiple ways to organize all this. I kept row 21 additional permitting up above and dam removal subtotal, or sorry, and the stream channel establishment subtotal. But we could combine this all in permitting, final design. We could do this different. We could keep it spread out like this, or compress things into these different lines. So that's one set of changes. And then down below, Malcolm, if you scroll down, I'm just confirming for myself. I don't think we've made any other changes to this lower part.
Don't think so.
But the various totals, carry through down to the bottom. And then in black,
And that,
I mean, everyone. Sorry.
so this is not addressing yet the discussion around sunk cost, or
No.
No, we don't have that anywhere in here.
I just have to step away for a second. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay.
so that's a separate discussion we will have on the sunk cost then.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So then just to eyeball, maybe you've all spent time with this already. But as I did the formulas, I was like, okay, I see what I think Toby drafted this, but it may have been Toby and Rachel. But in black, we have the one-time capital costs in row B. That's the lower estimate, upper estimate in column B, column C.
Mm-hmm.
We have these recurring costs in column D. And if we estimate a 5-year total, we get the total lower and upper in columns E and F. So our only recurring cost is carrying out adaptive management actions, and that carries through into row 50. And so that the numbers just slightly vary because we have these annual costs for 5 years. And that was sort of, we all decided as a standard. Adaptive management could continue beyond 5 years, but we all decided let's aim for understanding the 5-year cost. So that's what we have there, and all these numbers, I'm 99% sure, match with the summary revised tab, which just summarizes the high-level numbers across the different proposals.
Yes, they do.
Okay. I'll touch on the sunk costs conversation. So that was the idea was raised in the small group that the total costs of dam removal, if we were to proceed in that direction, should include acknowledging that we've spent money on the 30% design plan. And I think as a big group, some folks have raised, like, we're talking about what future costs are we contemplating here, and what are our options going forward. And that's the way I think folks in the town would be interested in understanding. But there's a conversation about, like, should we just put somewhere, not add to this bottom line figure, because this isn't future money, it's money we've already spent, sort of as an asterisk, an FYI, that we've also spent X dollars, I don't know what the figure is, on completing a 30% design plan. I raised and others have raised, like, we've done the dredging solicitation, we've done our RFIs, there are various other costs. And so folks were like, yeah, let's put those in in each
I thought we were
proposal. So
providing like somewhere in the summary that, okay, what has been the money that has been spent up until now in order to come up with the conclusion that we're coming up, right? I
So
thought we were
our
providing like a summary table or something showing these has been already been spent and not accounted for the future.
so are other groups doing the same?
yeah, we
That's what.
would.
So that's my question, is kind of the dredging doing the same, for example?
Well, I wonder if the simplest solution might just be to create a single table that goes through all of the expenditures leading up to the decision we're going to make.
That's what I think.
So that we've got, I don't know whether we go back to the 2012 whatever it was, study,
Watershed
whether we
management
go
plan.
back to the 2018 study, and what we include. Maybe we go back to 2018, but then we could include the costs of the task force as well to be complete in everything. I personally don't want us to get into something that could become very acrimonious over how much should you spend, how much have you spent? No, you haven't spent. I mean, it could
So
go.
so if you say, Malcolm, if you say we, you mean the complete task force.
The
I think it
complete,
makes sense to have some sort of framework where we talk about like these are the expenditures the task force has made to come to its decision. Because
Yeah.
honestly, even if this wasn't like for the 30% specifically, like even if it wasn't a 30% design that was kind of happening already, like we would have needed that same work to make our decision. We had no information otherwise. So I
Exactly.
think very analogous to some of the other, probably more expensive, but analogous to some of the other costs that have
So
been incurred.
again,
So I think it's fair to
I'm still trying to reconcile is the ask that the cost, the sunk cost that was done is shown in the overall report that affects all subcommittees, or is the ask we show in our subcommittee all the costs from the past assigned to us? I'm just confused here.
Yeah, I don't think that those costs should be assigned to a specific.
anyone. Yeah.
I
So
think
though our feedback is it needs to go in the overall summary of the complete task force summary to say all work done so far, independent of what the Do Nothing group is doing and what we are here doing and the dredging is doing, the overall cost for the town since the beginning of ages is X.
Mhm. And we can break that out. I mean, so that people can see, how much did it cost to do the 30% design? How much did it cost to do the estimates for the field, and how much did it cost to have a failed bid and everything? Just from the perspective of transparency, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I have no problem if all the cost is transparent. I would have a problem if only we show our
Yeah.
kind of sunk cost and nobody else shows sunk cost.
Yes.
Yeah, there was agreement in the small group that other groups would reflect
No,
some
but
cost. But I think we get into a point where it's like, well, that was your cost, that was my cost. So I agree with
yeah,
you.
exactly. It's
We
Yeah,
should
just
have
the
all
overall cost of the
Yeah.
what has been spent up until now. Because this one is already spent. We're not looking for this budget that has already been spent, but we're looking for the
right.
And they truly
more.
are like task force costs, right? Like
Yeah.
we can't fully understand the dredging without the stuff that the dredging group had to spend money on.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
vice versa. I feel like if we frame it as like these are the costs to have the task force and come
The
to that
analysis completed. Yeah, basically.
I mean, I feel like I don't know if that makes sense or if that's not.
I think that makes more sense to just put in as a summary of all of the costs that has happened up until now, in order to come to all three different conclusions, right? It's like we wouldn't know.
Okay.
But Jeff, that does that reflect the ask, or is this something now you have to take back and say that's the feedback you got from us and needs to be in the overall thing and not?
Yeah, I mean, I would send that back to the group, um, and say that's our feeling as a group, because it's impossible to sort of tease things out and say,
Yeah. And
It'll
I
make
feel like
most
it's
sense.
just a summary, so all of the like task force can come together to just bring out, and I probably Delia can tell us the total cost of everything up until now and just provide the summary in the beginning. Um,
I think that's
that's
up to the steering group then to decide where
yeah.
it the overall thing it sits.
Yeah.
okay.
I would raise two things for the group on this, and they're just from conversations and feedback we've had. One is that we have already received criticism that we are not being ecological about this dam removal, that we're too focused on recreation. And if we are now proposing that we engineer over half of the channel, that could come back as criticism. I'm not saying we need to do anything about it, but we do need to be prepared for that criticism.
I do think we briefly addressed that though in our piece of the proposal, where we kind of say like we thought about like just take it out, but considering our charge is not strictly ecological, it is to like hit all these criteria, and it just doesn't do that. Like
Right.
I think it's laid out there. I think but your point taken, yeah.
But we're now doubling the amount or potentially doubling the length of engineering of the channel, which really does take us up to about 50% of the channel. We argued, I think, very successfully for 1,000 feet. I have no idea whether people will just ignore it or whether people will get upset about it. I just think we should.
I think we have to go in with a straw man, whatever the straw man is, and then see what the feedback is.
Yeah.
If the feedback is very strong that people feel that there's too much engineering, we might have to go back and say we are reducing it. I think it's one of the things of these kind of public settings is to be open to feedback and to be open to listening. Yeah. And there could be other things on the feedback that they might change other things on this here. And my philosophy again and again in this town is it doesn't work if you're just going in with a predefined thing and then say take it or leave it. It works when you're saying this is where we are today. From all we learned, we get additional input and then we make adjustments as feasible. Of course, there might be things that are not feasible and we don't take, but we have to start somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, I think that's all I needed to say. I just wanted that out there. So are we done with this, Jeff? Do you have everything you need?
I think let me just comment also. Yeah, just a comment in response to you, Malcolm, and I'm sorry if I'm breaking up, some of the audio is breaking up, but I think I'm getting everybody's points. When we talk about engineering, people can envision different things, right? We could envision a LA river, which is just like a concrete
Right.
channel, which is not what we're talking about here. I think it takes engineering because that's the thoughtful approach to designing what we want to happen. But the interventions could be, logs, these core mats that Joe Gould showed us that are biodegradable after would degrade after the channel sort of becomes established in place. So we're talking about influencing the path the channel takes and not stealing concrete
Right.
in the
Right.
river. And once the route of the channel is established, I think those natural sedimentation and those natural stream processes will
Yeah.
occur. But
Yeah. And
that's a good point to raise.
you've used stream channel establishment stabilization in here, and I think that's it's the reason I was saying engineers, that I think that's a term that I've heard Keith use several times, that we have to engineer the channel. And as you said, that it conjures up a wide range of things, and we're not proposing a concrete channel. You're right, but so yeah, you've got. I think I like the language that's in here.
Okay. Let me just raise two other issues that have been raised. One, I spoke with Vicky this afternoon. She's sorry she couldn't join us tonight, but she jump to my notes. She had 2 points. One is that, and I think we're all as a group consistent on this, that we need to be committed to having the channel where we want it, and that's done as part of the project, not as a contingency or as a we'll see what happens and see if we can get around to it. But I think that's expressed clearly in our proposal.
Yeah.
And that she thought we still haven't grappled as much as we could with where sediment will go if it needs to be excavated to create the channel. And I just spoke with her at 4:30, and I didn't get back to the proposal, and I can't remember the language we have in there, but that is again something that I think would be established in the 100% design. And
Yes.
I think what we were trying to do is create that budget range that would incorporate.
Yeah, if I can say on the Sumco proposal that you and I were looking at for, I can't remember whether it was Framingham or somewhere, they actually reused the sediment as part of the stabilization of the channel. So
Yeah.
they were not carting it off-site, they were reusing it on-site. Because it's
but
not,
again, this is part of the 100% design,
Right.
yes,
and you have the range
exactly.
for the purpose here. It's kind of at a certain point you have to make decisions, or you have to go with incomplete information. Yeah, and that is for all of the three work groups. Yeah, everyone has a corner where you cannot to 150% certainty say what it is, and that's why we have a range on all of these.
Right. And I think we should also remember that we're not excavating large amounts of
Yeah.
sediment here, where we're all we're doing is ensuring that we have a 1% slope, and that the channel is well defined. So we're not taking out like 3 to 6 feet down, where I can't
Moving
remember.
it a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Final one of the question was raised, and that is this has come up. Dan Stapleton has raised this a couple times, and Keith asked us to address this. The question of whether the town will need to engage with FEMA to redefine the floodplain or the flood zone recorded in FEMA maps. So there is a process to adjust the maps. There's a letter of map revision. I asked some folks at Division of Ecological Restoration what's involved, and they sort of said, typically not involved with dam removal because downstream flooding isn't affected, because
Right.
it's the run of river, or, what comes in goes out. And then we've seen the maps in the 30% basis of design and the hydrology report that the 100, 200, 500 year flood zone would not be influenced.
Right.
Delia asked the A, for their response to that, and they said, yeah, we'll keep looking into it. It seems it's doable. It's something people are familiar with, completing this letter of map revision. And it's not just writing a letter, unfortunately, it's providing the calculations and everything to show FEMA, here's what's going to happen due to this change in infrastructure. So
by the time we send a letter, FEMA is not in existence anymore.
right.
I was
FEMA
gonna
will be
say,
discontinued.
this might be moot.
Yeah. So there's an outstanding question of whether that's a budget item we should estimate, which could be on the order of $50,000. And so there's an outstanding question of the likelihood that that's required, and what additional work that would take. So we're trying to get some details on that.
Jeff, I did look into this a way back when Keith first raised it, and I got the same answer as you. Why we don't do that with dam removals, because you're not actually changing the floodplain upstream, and in this circumstance, you're not changing it downstream. So there's need, but obviously we need to get a definitive answer if we can, in writing. But
okay. And then if I could screen share, Malcolm, for just 5 minutes, I just wanted to, maybe not even 5 minutes, I just wanted to show you a couple of slides addressing another issue that came up. I can't remember which meeting this came up and if it was only the small group or if it came up in our last task force meeting, but Keith had shared this product, a USGS online product called StreamStats, and shared a screen grab that suggested the channel would naturally flow south of Scout Island. I did some reading about what is StreamStats, what is this product telling us, and if I can screen share here, I want to show you what I spoke with the small group about and what I think StreamStats means. So this was the screen grab that Keith shared. This is, again, it's here's the URL up here, StreamStats at USGS. The purpose of StreamStats is to help calculate kind of a rough hydrology and hydraulics data, sort of size of watershed, typical flow, all this stuff. If you select a point in a stream network, it says, okay, let's look upstream, and based on all this data, tell me something about this watershed. It's not designed to predict where a channel will occur if one removes an impoundment. So this was the screen grab that raised questions. And if you have to go to this website, you have to select Massachusetts as your region of interest and then zoom in quite a bit to begin to get this graphic, to begin to get the blue lines. But if you see over here on the right, what the blue lines are a product called Stream Grid. The grid in GIS just means these are little squares, little pixels, instead of a line. It's a set of pixels that says if there's water here, it's next going to flow here. And what's Stream Grid is, what are the blue pixelated lines? Are they real streams? Why are there so few of them? If you scroll down on this page, you get to this text block, which I've highlighted here. And again, here's the URL. But it says it's not really possible to say in general terms that the stream grid shown in the StreamStats represents the natural stream path. And this text block goes on to sort of describe in detail that what it is reflecting a calculation of slope from a digital elevation model. So of course, water runs downhill. You use GIS to create a digital elevation model, and it calculates that the water is going to run downhill to the next block. But what we have in Warner's Pond is a flat surface. This is the LiDAR, or sort of laser elevation data. And as you might guess, a sheet of water has no slope. So what StreamStats does in the case of an impoundment is defined by this page and the URL up at the top here.
Yeah.
And it says, artificial path features shall be placed in all polygons, except isolated lake features. Artificial path features shall represent the shortest path from the inflow to the outflow without crossing through banks or islands. So my read on this is it's saying this didn't use any knowledge, certainly doesn't have any bathymetric data to establish where the flow is likely to be through Warner's Pond. It's just creating the shortest path
Yeah,
from
that's
to the outlet.
That's how the algorithm works.
And this is, again, sort of a saying what not to do as a model builder, and this is what would result from the rules that they put into this model. So this is what I think is represented here as the shortest path from inlet to outlet, and not any predictive, power of where the channel is likely to be.
And it's not taking into account the terrain that the stream would be flowing over. I couldn't do it all, but I sort of looked at the I think it was the 2023 alternatives analysis. No, it was the 2018. If you look at the depth of the sediment versus the depth of the water, you can get a sense of the terrain. And where they've got this running, the water would be flowing uphill to get there, which is extremely unlikely. It would be more likely to flow downhill into the deep pool, just on the basis of what the terrain is. And that deep hole is really deep. It's like 9 feet of water and 12 feet of sediment. I mean, it's very deep. And so is that whole area up there. So I think it's very unlikely that the water would go in that direction. And the thing that EA highlighted was that previous maps of the potential stream course have turned right at Scout Island and come down between Miraca Island and Scout Island. And they have looked at it twice now and come to the same conclusion that whatever went on with those maps, the stream path will not go that way now. It will, at least initially, go the way that they're saying, and they do address that in their report. So,
okay, thanks for taking a look at that. So now we need to dive into our presentation for we've got 6 weeks now to prepare, I think, or whatever our lead time is.
Yeah, I may not be there for that because I'm going in for surgery and I don't know whether I'll be functional or not for that meeting. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm not here that day.
So we've given a couple presentations. What do you think? What do folks think are the key parts of the information, the key graphics, key points should be making?
I don't know that this is this is probably not a point for, oh man, all my things are running out of batteries. I don't think this is necessarily a point for this slide, but in terms of our own preparedness, I think it would be really good that we can all talk to the width and depth of the stream and why it will look up more like upstream rather than downstream, because that is something that comes up so frequently. So I think it's really important for the people who are there to have like a good grasp on why that is. So I know that's not like a leading like presentation point or anything, but I just, based on like so much of the feedback we've gotten so far, I think it's going to be very important that we all understand and can speak to it. I mean, that said, I think it is probably, it would be nice to have a picture of what we think it's going to look like. And so we can talk to that during it. We don't need to talk to the why in our bullets, but
yeah,
I think as in our ability to talk about it in small groups afterwards would be key.
Yeah.
I I think if we were to look at, I mean, we clearly need to have some sort of visual description of what this will look like. And I don't know whether that's using something like the map you put together, Jeff, with the what's going to be deep marsh, what's going to be shallow marsh, what's going with the expected stream path in it. Should that be the initial or should that be the final? And some of I think we should try and address up front some of the issues which have been controversial, which is stream path, stream width and depth, as Liz says, the vegetation, because we have a leading environmentalist who is going around with armfuls of Phragmites telling everybody that this is what it's going to look like, and Peter should not be doing that. But I mean, we do have to address that specifically, I think. I think I'm not sure what else has really been a challenge in all of this. But those to me are key things. I assume we're not going to present the budget because will there be something that presents all the budgets together, or just do we have to present the budget?
I went back to my notes about what the presentation is going to be, and so it looks like we're supposed to have slides on what the rationale, that we'll have like a templated cost slide. So I think we are going to be talking about our own costs, something about what risks and uncertainties and maybe what we've considered and decided not to go forward with. And then there's the poster. And actually, Malcolm, I am not artistic, so this is like an idea in my head that I would never be able to translate. So I'm gonna lay that out right now. But I think it would be really cool if our poster could kind of have that idea of what you're saying of like, look, this is what the stream is going to be like. This is the new vegetation, and then like using some of the information Jeff's put together about like the diversity in each of the different places. If we could kind of like, in here, and then like explode out, like that's what this looks like, and like explode out, that's what this looks like. I feel like that could be a really nice way of kind of highlighting the new diversity we should hopefully see in this with this. And also could hopefully highlight some of the information about the channel. Because yeah, so the poster I just wrote down like top bullets and images. So I feel like where it's so hard to envision, like ours, I think is going to be the hardest to envision. I feel like we should probably rely more heavily on images, but really be able to discuss that they're not just stock images of brooks, and like really explain how we've gotten to.
Yeah, that's good. Liz, I think I tried to take notes on this also, but could you read that template again, the elements that should be in the presentation?
Yeah, so the presentation, it said, I wrote down, we are supposed to have what it is, our rationale, the costs, and the cost slide. I think they were going to template it. We were going to do a template for that. They were going to take that one just so we are all matched. A slide about the risks, uncertainties we see, and potentially a slide about what we've considered and not gone forward with. And I think, Malcolm, that's maybe where we can kind of get ahead to this idea of like, well, why are we engineering it so much? Like it's, we should just take it out and let it go, or and I don't know how much of that conversation was around like engineering of the stream versus like giving people access to the land there. If I'm remembering some of the comments that we had.
Good. Yeah, it seems like the slideshow probably needs a little work. I think we do need some analog images of other sites. I think some other sort of questions that have arisen that haven't risen for a while, but I think could still come up to newcomers or folks who still have questions include the the protected status, the conservation status of the
Yes.
revealed land.
That's a really good point.
We've also raised, we have raised questions, and I don't think we've gotten a legal answer on the, defining parcel boundaries that are
Property
currently
boundary,
defined by the water's edge. But we did get a letter from town council regarding the conservation status of the town owned.
Jeff, I'm sorry, I'm gonna throw us off track. But when you just mentioned that about the deeds, at some point we discussed, should we have a light item in the budget about kind of trying to legal uncertainties? I don't know if that's something we want to bring up or just, I don't even know what that would be, but I sorry, when you said that, I had to remember memory of a meeting that people mentioning that we should probably include that in our budget then. Sorry.
No, good reminder. This survey, so I have to admit, the line I added in our budget, $18,000 for bathymetric survey, I continue to scratch my head. I'm like, didn't we do bathymetry like twice already?
That's what I
Yeah.
was thinking, that
Twice.
we have it from before.
Yeah.
But
We're doing this again and again and again.
Yeah. So I'll ask Delia, yeah, tell me again why we need to do this another time. And would a survey include surveying
parcel.
outer limits, the town boundary,
Mhm.
which is the town ownership, which I mean, we all know good fences make good neighbors, but in the absence of a fence, two parties could pay for surveys and they might be different. But if the town said, we've surveyed our land and the edge of our land is your land,
Mhm.
then that becomes the boundary definition, I suppose. And then all those abutter questions could be answered and could be monumented or whatever it takes.
There is the potential for, given that none of us know what it says in people's land deeds. Obviously, if there is a major conflict between a homeowner's boundaries and the town's boundaries, it's going to have to be settled legally, whether that is through nice discussion or whether it's through a lawsuit. I hope that we could do it through mutual agreement. But at the same time, I don't know how big a problem it is. I mean, it's been raised, but nobody has actually presented any data to highlight how big it may or may not be.
So in terms of process, so our date is now still not established. No, you guys, it was April something.
April 3rd,
April 3rd, right?
Thursday.
Got 5 weeks until then. So, I mean, I'd be happy to work with the presentations that we already have and the various graphics that we've assembled. I don't think we need to make huge changes. And sort of begin to outline a script that I could send around for comments. And if we felt the need to meet one more time, we have plenty of time, I think, to find a date the second half of March.
Yeah, that makes sense. We also want to, I mean, Jeff, I hate to do this to you. I'm just assuming you're going to speak for us because you've been very well spoken at all these things.
I'm happy to do it if folks.
Well, I would be
if Malcolm and Sven can't make it, but I'm happy to.
I may be
do it
there.
too.
I just can't be sure.
Yeah.
But I just want to say that out loud rather than just kind of assume that we all. We don't want to get there and be like, oh, who's talking?
That would be fun.
It would be great.
I'd be happy to do it, but I don't want to assume either. grab the mic, but I'm happy
No,
to.
I feel like you've done a really great job presenting so
Yeah.
far.
So how do we have to put together a poster as well, Liz?
Yep.
I like your idea that we could have a map with then a little breakout not insets, outsets as they were, to show what would happen and what it would look like. That's a very good idea.
Mhm.
How-
What are some of the other? So Liz, you mentioned having images that capture maybe those natural communities. Like, what do we mean by deep marsh, shallow marsh, wet
Exactly.
meadow, shrub
Yeah.
swamp?
And I think it might having it that way might also show sort of how important a lot of um having a lot of this stuff is, you know what I mean? Like not just like, oh, we've ticked all these boxes, but all these boxes have some sort of substantial land behind them.
Yeah.
So I think if we can kind of show, I don't know, I feel some in my head like this kind of format would kind of highlight that like it's important to have like the greatness of having a lot of it.
Yeah,
I think like I said, I'm very unartistic and I'm terrible with computers, but I'm like graphic programs. I can program a computer for you guys. I cannot do anything graphically.
I'm happy to play with that if you
Yeah.
you
Yeah, maybe the
don't
two of us
mind.
can kind of try to futz around together or something like
Let's
that.
do that. That would
Okay.
work.
Okay. Great.
The other thing, this may just be too annoying to everybody to raise, but the issue of greenhouse gas emission and climate change. We've had Paul writing the whole thing off as, oh, it's only marginal. And if you look at it on a global scale, none of this is important, I mean, to be honest. So I don't think we can write it off that way. And we've had somebody saying, well, there's no real evidence for it one way or another. And that's wrong. There is very solid evidence that by removing the impoundment, we will significantly decrease greenhouse gas emissions, not on the first day, but it's complex and the area is still under study. I mean, if you look in the literature, there are lots of studies underway to look at this and to quantify it better. But there's no question that removing, draining and impoundment overall significantly decreases greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, I think that we ended up in the last conversation saying that marginal was, everything that you said, Malcolm, that directionally there's really no argument over the evidence that you and Liz, I think, put together. And then I think we said this would represent, marginal decrease in greenhouse gas emissions. Did we all end up agreeing that that should stay?
I think we did. I think there was like some discuss because this is where we had a discussion about why is it even in the criteria? Where we talked about like why we're not going to backtrack out, like we might, when you come to your own decision, you might decide to weight things more. Well, actually, I guess I don't know if it's your own decision or if we're as a group are going to decide to weight things the same way, but and that's fine. Like that's fair to me. There are significant other there are things that are going to change significantly and have other significant impacts. It's fine to me if people say like, let's weight it in a very little way. But like, I think I said this to you guys, like the whole reason like this even pinged in my brain as something to pay attention to when they first did this, started talking about it, is like, it is when I had just been reading about dam removal and greenhouse gas emissions for the first time. Like I had never really thought about that kind of stuff beforehand. I mean, and that's like really the reason I was sort of like, I don't want to like ignore this fact.
I agree with you. And I have no idea how ultimately we're going to come down to weighting it. That's not, I think, terribly important right now.
But I think, it's in there. It's fine. I'm fine with using the word marginal, I think.
Okay.
mean, it's not like the river out in the Pacific Northwest that they're undamming, right? Like
This was,
that, if they were saying that was marginal, I'd like raise my eyebrows, but you know.
yeah. Yeah, I think the interpretation of the word marginal has two. One is it's marginal, it's insignificant.
Negligible,
That
right?
is that it's marginal in that it's an increase on the whole
Right.
thing. And I guess I find the use of the word marginal to be
Either way.
fraught for that reason. Yeah.
Well, I'm open to folks, just saying whatever,
Right.
pushing back on that.
Or
saying
even
it's-
if we say it would be an incremental.
Yeah.
in-
Yeah, I think that's certainly how I,
Yeah.
as we
Yeah.
came to that word, was interpreting it.
Yeah. Well, we can resolve that.
So I think if I were to take a crack at sort of refreshing some of the slide sets, the decks that we've used before, and then Liz and Malcolm, if you speak about the poster, I think we can be sort of iterative
Yeah.
and make sure that they're hitting the same high points, and one's maybe more graphical or something that people can walk up to, the poster, and the other, not that mine will be all text, but can make sure it's hitting the same points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many slides do we have? Did I hear 5?
Yeah, like I don't make anything less than 20.
I think
No,
they're
Nice.
envisioning one for each of those. But I didn't write that down. That's
Yeah,
just
I think you're right, because
away
we
with.
wanted to keep it mostly conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we only have, it's 45 minutes, right, per group, so you'd probably want maybe 15 to 20 minutes of presentation, so you can have a lot of Q&A time, right?
yeah.
And honestly, I feel like in our group, I don't know, maybe we'd want to even keep the weight even heavier towards Q&A time, because I feel like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree with you. I think the more Q&A we have, the better. Because people have major concerns, and if we spend all of our time talking at people, that doesn't feel as though we're listening.
Yeah.
So I think the more we listen and hear what people have to say, the better.
I also,
And we should not try to get defensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's our work is and was to bring the facts together, the best of our knowledge and efforts we could do in that time period.
Yeah.
And if someone has good points, acknowledge their good points, and we take it home.
Yes. If we
I
can't
also,
answer the question, we shouldn't try and make up an answer. We say we don't know, and we'll get the answer.
I also wonder if, because that now that I'm remembering, this is one of the other things that they had mentioned for this is like think about who's going to answer questions. So I wonder if, in the interest of having not all of the pressure on Jeff for talking, if each of us should sort of have, well, I guess it's you and me and Vicky, Jeff, if we should sort of divide up areas.
Sammy's able to make there, yeah.
Yeah, Sammy.
I don't think
So-
I would be.
So whoever is going to be there, if we kind of like chop up the different kind of subject areas, so we can like each of us can kind of make sure to really refresh on a specific subject area, and as questions, depending on what the area is, one of us will be, can handle different groups, sections,
I like
areas.
that.
Good. Is that a plan?
Sounds like a plan.
Like a great plan.
Should we try and set a date for another meeting? Or do we do that just online?
I feel like we should set a date for like, so we're 5 weeks out, so maybe 3 weeks from now, just we have it on the calendar if we need it.
I think that's a good idea.
If we feel like we want to touch base closer to it. But we could also do that online, so Vicky has input.
True. Actually, that would be better because we
Yeah,
don't
I
want
guess we'll do that.
to present
Make sure
Vicky
we
with
keep
a
in touch.
fait accompli. Yeah. All right.
All right, I think we have our marching orders for tonight. We, I can see Anna's still with us, which is great. Any public, if we're ready to move to public comment, if there's no more issues in committee, great. Any comments or questions from the public? All right. Thanks for joining us, Anna, and thanks everybody for tuning in tonight, and onward.